Greetings, humanity. Hello. I'm Jim. I use he, him pronouns, and it's been a very long time since I've done this format, but this is Abject Confabulation. I am here with Drew. Hello.
Hello.
It has been several forever since you've been on the channel, but
so many forevers. It has been so many forevers.
I can't even count them anymore. It's very difficult to count forevers.
I think we've both achieved that age where it's just not worth our time to try to remember how long it's been since we've done things. Because why? Don't we have better things to do? We also don't remember that. But
yeah, it's absolutely fair. But no, it's we're going to be chatting about tabletop RPGs, and specifically we're going to be talking a little bit about collaborative storytelling, when you just sort of either, if you're doing a GM-less game or if you're doing your game with a GM and the players are involved in telling the story more, shaping things in the world, than they would be in your more traditional sort of adversarial relationship. And there are a lot of different things related to it, but I just, before we dive in fully, what are there any games that you have had the opportunity to either run or play of late that you've been able to have a good back and forth with your with the players?
Oh, well, if you're that I've played recently, that narrows it down quite a bit. Just because in my role as a librarian, I run a lot of programming for teenagers and youth. And we do run at least 4 sessions of role-playing games every single month. Not a lot of them work on the same level as that sort of, as you say, call and response or GM-less or collaborative. I mean, I try to explain to them all role-playing games are collaborative storytelling. That's that's RPG 101. But I think all of us know that isn't really how games like, and we're just going to use Dungeons and Dragons as an example, how that works a lot of the time, especially when you're working with younger players, or in my case, when I'm worried, I'm working in a very set time frame. So it's not like we're going over to someone's house and playing until that section is done. We are playing for 90 minutes or playing for 2 hours. It's a very short period of time. So you have to build in a certain level of control in order to get point A to point B and all the chaos that is ensued. So obviously, short question long, the main thing that I have played recently that works kind of in a collaborative sense is I try to start all campaigns with the Quiet Year, or a version of the Quiet Year, which since my learning about it, I'd say within maybe the last 7 or 8 years, has definitely informed how I begin a campaign. So we go around, we don't play it in the traditional sense because, I mean, have you ever tried to keep teenagers quiet? The answer, of course, is it doesn't work. But for any of the campaigns that I'm playing outside of my work, we try to at least run a sort of facsimile of that, whether it be with the map or just the answering of the questions. Is that one that you're familiar with? I mean, obviously, of course, you're familiar with it, but is it one that you've played and had enjoyed?
The Quiet Year? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I love The Quiet Year. Also, I really like The Deep Forest, which is the sort of the, I guess they did a free proper nouns sometimes, as folks who know me will realize that sometimes it takes me a minute to get proper nouns to the front of my brain. So I'm trying to grab the name of the developers for The Deep Forest, and it's not coming to me yet, but it'll be there. But the creator of The Quiet Year and one of the co-creators of Urban Shadows,
which I have not played. So
I think put together The Deep Forest, which it's The Quiet Year, but it's fantasy monsters, and it's about decolonization after
The Deep
adventurers have
Forest or
tramped
just
through
Deep Forest?
the Deep Forest,
All
and
right.
it's available for free.
Nice.
But yeah, I highly recommend it.
Cool.
But I had a lot of fun with that because you're playing basically fantasy monsters who are trying to reclaim your forest after the adventurers have left for a while, and you have a year before they come back, essentially.
That's really cool. I like that. I think that's something that teenagers would really like, is I think they would like to play monsters. My general rule of thumb when I'm playing, because I don't want to get this program canceled, is before every session, I explain that they are a team of heroes, and I expect them to play as a team, both in character and in person, and to act heroically, meaning that please don't set the peasants on fire. Don't do anything that if you went home and told your parents what you did that day, I wouldn't have to receive an angry email, is essentially protecting myself from having to, we live in a very litigious society. And I really think it's beneficial, especially for the kids who come to the library, that the kids have an outlet to do something like that. But I remember what I was like as a teenager, and I did want to set the peasants on fire. And that is one of the things that I have to keep them from doing. So the Quiet Year, we have used that quite a bit. I have played For the Queen with them, which is still collaborative, even though the world building isn't as important. And that was one that, that I take that game with me everywhere I go. Legitimately, it's in my book bag at all times. I went to the Galapagos Islands in 2023 and brought it there. Did I play? No. But I still brought it with me just in case. So games like that, even something as simple, which is less of a role-playing game and more of a card game, for example, Once Upon a Time, which is sort of a collaborative world-building one. And we have used that as an idea starter. Now, over my shoulder, I've got Fiasco, which is a game that you introduced me to over a decade ago. I think definitely. I'd heard about it, but I'd never played. And that is my favorite collaborative storytelling game. But I haven't gotten a chance to play it at a really long time. I kind of walked away from conventions for the last 4 or 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
I moved to an area where we just don't have gaming conventions, that at least we didn't until this most recent year. So like 2020 kind of shut everything down. It was a lot of, it's taken a while for a lot of the local conventions to kind of get back going again. So it has been a while for me since I've played some of my favorites. I was thinking of something else that I have played. Well, I play a lot of Kids on Bikes, and Kids on Bikes is very much a collaborative storytelling game. Especially, it's designed to begin in creating a world where everyone answers questions and you build a world together, which, again, with something like The Quiet Year, I have found that once you create a world together, your players are already going to be more invested in it and are far more likely to make it to the next session, versus if I spend 2 months building a world and then presenting it to them, they're more likely to not meet back up again if they're not enjoying it. So once you give them an idea, or you meet the NPC that they created during that one session, the level of engagement, regardless of the age, shoots really, really high up. And I think that's part of the reason that collaborative storytelling has worked and really become far more important, and part of a sort of, I'd say it's kind of built in. It's more of a feature rather than a bug these days for new games that are coming out. I think old school players, and you and I have been running role-playing games together for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And, when we first started playing together with our only playing cards, Western style, pre-Deadlands game back in Myrtle Beach in the 90s, the mid 90s, we were still doing that call and response game master to player, where you present the world and I just get a chance to play around in it. But I think both of us can agree that as we have been progressing as game masters, the storytelling aspect of it has become so much more important. Like it's less of a board game where we're trying to defeat our players and more of a play to see what happens if I may steal from the friends at the table sort of mentality. Where and again, we're jumping miles ahead at this point in time, where I have stopped doing prep work for the most part. I've been doing what I call truths, and we can get to that later, because I would much rather have my players lead the story than me try to lead my players. So a lot of that has progressed both as systems and games that I find myself drawn to are being produced, but also as I find play groups, I'm more likely to stay with a play group that wants to be collaborative and wants to invest in that story. So yeah, it's been a trip.
That's great. That's
Sorry, what was the question again?
It's a conversation. We can go wherever we want. But I did want to ask specifically, you mentioned Kids on Bikes,
Yes.
which I am not familiar with. That's one of the ones I haven't gotten around to. Are there specific are there specific tools in there for you talked about players generating NPCs and such? Are there like specific tools for it, or were you doing more sort of kit bashing?
No. So before characters are created, you answer a certain number of questions. You go around the table and each person takes a chance. So it might be something like, so the idea behind Kids on Bikes is, and yes, it was created in response to popularity of shows like Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm.
So it is, has come up after things like Meddling Kids, which is a kind of a Scooby-Doo knockoff. There's a couple of other like kid games, but this is specifically the idea of strange events in small towns. And so the idea behind it is, even though it doesn't have to be 80s or 90s or 70s or 60s, there's no necessarily set decade. The idea is that it's a town small enough that you could bike across it in a couple of hours. So the opening kind of salvo, if you will, would be like, is the town in, what's its economic status? Is it thriving? Is it in decline? What's one strange landmark that everybody knows about? Who's one person that everyone is happy to see in your town? What is your school mascot called? What is the next town over called? And so there's about 10 questions. It's very quick to put it together. But once you have that town built, then you're allowed to create your characters so that the characters are in response to a world that you've already built. And it plays into a lot of tropes. So the game came out X number of years ago. And during the pandemic, I played with a group of my friends, and it possibly the most rewarding role-playing game experience I've ever had. I just became obsessed with this game, wrote to the creators, interviewed them for my podcast. They invited me to play test for the second edition. So a lot of the new stuff that's in the second edition of Kids on Bikes is stuff that my play group put together. I would say maybe about 25% of the new stuff, things that we changed, new questions, new tropes, new bikes, how the game generally runs. And it is become one of my favorite systems, if not top 3 favorite systems of all time, because it allows that kind of collaborative storytelling, but it also allows for a level of, it's rules light, but it's very adaptable. So it's definitely one that if you ever want to run through, if you ever want to, for instance, play as a kid in Myrtle Beach, say early 90s, to see what it was like as teenagers. And
can't imagine what that would have been like.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've actually never played at a beach town before. We've played in a harbor town in the Pacific Northwest a couple of times. Strangely enough, that was a lot of choices. We did Seattle before the grunge explosion was one of the games that I ran and really enjoyed that one. Part of it too is everyone comes up with a couple of rumors about the town, and the game master can decide. So like everyone's already kind of like there's a predilection to what kind of a story you want. But there's something that isn't in the rule book that I always do for the game, which is I ask them, what the rating is. I think if we were watching a movie, what kind of rating you would want. And I always ask them what kind of genre they would prefer too. So we all are on the same page as, like horror, fantasy, science fiction, folk tale, something along those lines. So we did a weird pre-grunge explosion folk horror fairy tale game that
Nice.
turned out pretty fun. I really enjoyed that one.
That's very cool. That's very cool. I'm glad to hear that it has all of those tools baked in. Also, just because it's like I know and I'm remembering that in times past you kind of had to sort of DIY it with a lot of games.
Sure.
And I mean, still there are some games that still I have a tendency. I don't know if you recall this about me, but I have a tendency to over prepare in some cases. When it comes to setups of games, and a lot of times I will try to run players through kind of even if it's a more traditional game that doesn't have the tools, I will try to do a thing ahead of time during session 0 in particular, and just sort of figure. I throw out prompt questions, and we'll try to just basically tie the players into what's going on and help and get them to help define what's going on, because that tells you what they're interested in doing, right? So I mean,
yeah. Oh, seeing the players' actions tell you what the players are most interested in doing. Where that constant trope where the game master or dungeon master or whatever is like, oh my gosh, we were trying to get them to go into the campaign and they were talking to a tree for the last 20 minutes. It's like, hey, you know what? If your players were talking to the tree for the last 20 minutes, that's what your players are interested in doing. And rather than fighting them, go ahead and just make that tree the coolest tree monster ever, or tree person, or change your entire campaign. And because I got so tired of changing my entire campaign because I was seeing that my players were interested in doing something else, I started preparing less. Now, admittedly, things got better once I fully embraced session 0 and didn't make it just the session where we all make characters together, but actually built the world together as a form of collaborative storytelling. So that if my players said, you know what we're really interested in doing is something horror, I don't have to go, but I really wanted to do this. If they're all really excited about it and I'm okay with it, and again, part of the session 0 is reminding your players that you as the game master are also a player. As long as we're all on the same page, you kind of go where the energy is going, right? So
absolutely. And it's just basically, if they want the tree, lean into the tree.
Lean into the tree. The tree can take it. The tree can handle the weight of this entire story.
You are creating the tree. You can make it freaking Yggdrasil.
Right? Yes. Oh yeah. We suddenly get sucked into the tree and we go on one branch, and who knows? Yeah, there's some fun stuff going on in there. And I have been known to completely throw out, like, just chuck a binder of notes and go on and just see where they're going. And to that effect, I have adopted something, and this is something I talk about on the podcast quite a bit.
Oh, cool.
Is what I do now, rather than doing a huge prep amount, I decide on between 1 and 5 truths. Usually try to do 1, but usually has to be 3. No matter where the players take the direction, certain truths always have to be true. So, for instance, one of my first Kids on Bikes games, I knew for a fact that all the weird stuff that happens in the town is because 100,000 years ago, an alien spacecraft landed before any people were there, and its engines have slowly been leaking into the earth. And that strange alien fuel has been creating your cryptids and your weird what have yous. As long as that truth is always true, no matter where they go, that informs the decisions that they make or the decisions and my reactions to them. So as long as I've got that, I don't have to change much. Now, I know that Kids on Bikes is a little different because you don't have to worry about combat very often, because let's face it, if a group of adults decides to fight a group of kids, the kids are going to lose. They're just going to lose, like, realistically speaking. So what we do, rather than doing combat is we figure out a way to get the kids out of the combat situation, as if you were watching a Goonies type movie, right? Like the Fratellis, if they decide to actually try to kill the kids, they're going to succeed. It's just the Goonies becomes a much shorter movie. But, but if I stick to those truths, like for instance, the human bad guys are competent is a truth. And they will succeed in harming the children if the children confront them directly. No matter what scenario we have in that, if the kids try to, I know that I'm keeping that compass point for something along those lines. So it has kept me from doing much in the way of prep, other than maybe I write a list of names for people that I need, or maybe I decide what kind of monsters may show up in a D&D game, or whatever, monster of the week kind of a thing. But for the most part, I have gone the opposite direction of what I was like as a game master, and just try to simplify it. And that is because I trust my players. Now, again, this is not for all of my sessions. I don't do this for my teenagers. And not that I don't trust them. I trust them to not do what I want. So I have to make sure that I railroad them to a certain extent. The other thing too is, again, if anyone's watching this and you're going, that seems kind of rude, we don't continue. I don't have the same kids every single month. Right. So I might get 7 brand new kids. I cannot have a to be continued adventure. It has to be a one shot that runs between 90 minutes and 2 hours every single month. And I run 4 of those. So, it has to have a beginning, middle, and end. I do 30 minutes per encounter, regardless if it's a role-playing encounter, a riddle encounter, or a combat encounter. So I know that with goofing off snack time, I can get at most 3 encounters in there. And so that, to have a story arc that has a beginning, a middle, and a resolution, that's tricky. It is essentially like one chapter of a module, essentially, what they get. And so I have to keep a tighter reins for that one.
Nice. And this is at the library, was it? The library?
Yeah. So I'm a youth services coordinator at a public library. So we have programming for 8 to 11-year-olds, and then 12 to 18-year-olds, among other things. And then, of course, I have my personal sessions where I usually run 2. In April, so I'm running 2 sessions tomorrow. In April, I've already run 9 sessions. Wow. So I think I'm going to go an 11-session month. Between library stuff, I ran a spring camp, which had 4 or 5 sessions. It's
That's many.
I'm actually taking a break in May, and I'm really looking forward to that break quite a bit. I actually, in my casual game that I play with my friends, I killed them all. So I could knowing I was going to be taking a break in May, I left them at a cliffhanger. I killed them all, just on purpose. I just up the ante a little bit, and let them get that false sense of security. So I get these worried texts every once in a while going, "Hey, but what are we going to do?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, we'll see you in June, man." It's like, but no, June.
Oh no. Well, no, I said we're ending. And if we don't meet back up, we've already, we don't have to worry about feeling like it was a cliffhanger. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's delightful. But and hopefully they're okay. Are they okay?
On the
are
off
they
chance,
okay with
off
it?
the off chance they watch this, are they okay with it? No.
Are the players okay?
Angry. The players are very angry. The characters are not great. But I have an idea of what we're going to do with it. It's interesting because we had a minor session 0 with this one, but it was a very large group that has expanded over time. Which is tricky. We're running, I think, 7 or 8 people per session, which is not ideal. And we didn't really get a good background as to why they're like, oh, I don't feel like we should be, why would these characters be hanging out with each other? And I'm like, I need something that unites them. What's a good thing that death. Death is a fantastic uniter of parties. when eventually they wake back up in the living world and they find themselves branded by whatever power decides to bring them back, then I can use any excuse I want, because they can feel a pull, they can feel a calling, things deciding to attack them at random. Now they have the reason to be a party, right? So I haven't done the killing the party in a really, it's probably been over a decade since I've killed the party for narrative purposes. And it felt good. It felt right.
No, that's good. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I don't think I've actually. The only times I've ever had TVKs, it's usually been by accident. I don't think I've ever had a full party kill by accident. There was one time I did do it on purpose, but I brought them back during that session. Sure. Basically, it was was sort of a dream ghost sequence thing that was going on. But that is interesting. Closest I come, I do sometimes with individual characters who want to make an exit. Usually that's another sort of way in which I try to do things collaboratively. I'm like, with a lot of I am in many ways too nice as a game master sometimes.
Sure.
But it's when it comes to a lot of the hard and fast, fighting things at least. But there are a lot of games I run. This is not for every game, but for some games that I run, I'm sort of like, well, if you're going to die, you can if you wish. Otherwise, we're going to represent it as a sort of change of some kind. But we're going to have a conversation and talk about how your character is going to change as a result of something that happens. Basically, is usually often how I do it. Now, if I'm running something like, say, Paranoia, that's, all bets are off.
Right. That's the
you got clones.
I mean, look, it's or you're playing a game of Call of Cthulhu, like a true, Call of Cthulhu is a successful game when everyone's dead or insane. It's that it was you were not a part of that game, I don't believe, but like I remember playing my first 3-session game of Call of Cthulhu and went, oh wait, this is role playing. Like the story is far more important. My death actually made the story better. My insanity made the story better. When horrible things happen, I didn't get upset because that's how this game works. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Now, admittedly, oh gosh, this is embarrassing. I went into my first game of Call of Cthulhu with a German kickboxing parapsychologist thinking,
oh, wow.
I'll have an answer for everything. And my my storyteller? No. What is Keeper? What is the game master in Call of Cthulhu called?
The Keeper.
The Keeper. Yeah. Boy. You play role-playing games for 45 years, and like there's a lot of like every once in a while I'll remember a first edition Dungeons and Dragons rule and I'll forget about it, and they're like, yeah, that's not a rule anymore. And I'm like, fine. My Keeper had none of that. They're like, look, I don't care if you can fight without weapons and have a machine gun. That's not going to save you in this game. But to go back, because I want to actually respond to your killing people in Dungeons and Dragons or killing people in games and how that works in collaborative storytelling. I usually will ask in the session 0, if you're going to put this much work into the world, if you're going to put this much work into your character, before we do all of that, do you want to treat this game like a game or do you want to treat this game like a story?
Excellent.
And if they say like a story, I say, then here's the deal. I am probably not going to kill your character unless you do something very stupid. Like just because you roll a 1, your character is not going to die. You have to either make a narrative choice, that is, you accept the role of that character's fate, or you run naked into the mouth of a dragon. Like you do something so dumb that it's not, you are proving to me that you aren't taking this seriously. But I will try to work around a story, like if your characters don't die, they go unconscious. Your characters, like if you're, there has to be some reminder of the total party kill. Maybe at one point in time, I did this thing where if somebody rolls a critical success against you, your character is left with a scar, but you have to write about the scar and how that affects things.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to do any kind of like fetishism on scars or anything like that, but like as a this is something that your character will grow from,
Right.
or there's a cost to it. But it was a choice that is another kind of evolution of my being a game master and understanding that if players are going to put this much work into a character, that they don't lose their character unless it works for the story, and everyone has to be in agreement with it. And I've had players who have decided that I think in this moment my character should sacrifice themselves for the good of the story. And if, double check, you agree? Cool. Then I'm going to give this moment the weight it deserves. But otherwise, and that's them collaborating with the story. Otherwise, we find a way around it. So that's another way that just kind of accepting that my role is less of a narrator and more of a facilitator as a game master. Has shaped the way I tell those stories, and I kind of bring my players into that narrative.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it's I agree wholeheartedly with basically talking about how we're going to treat death in any session zero. I kind of look at that almost as part of the safety process that I also do with session zero.
Yeah,
just basically you because you want to make sure it's like, okay, how are we, what is the going to be the standard for death in this, and just sort of establish that, make sure everybody's on board, and run with what you get. Yeah, no, that's great. That is great. I did want to ask a little bit though about speaking of the things that suddenly happened in the middle of games. I did want to, because something you said a little while back reminded me of another thing. Have you ever played Inspectors?
No, what's that?
So Inspectors is a game that I run
a list of all these new games that I'm so excited to play. And I'm going to interrupt you again.
Okay.
One of my decisions recently is I'm staying off of Kickstarter. There are so many good games that I know I'm never going to play that I have just been buying so that I'll be able to read the rules and just go, what if? And I've reached a certain age where it's my anxiety, my reading has like manifested in a kind of a difficult for me to concentrate enough to read and absorb rules. I can still read children's books, I'm a children's librarian, but I don't read game books for fun the way I used to. And yet I have probably received 6 game books in the mail this year from Kickstarters from 2 years ago, where I was like, I'll definitely buy this game and do something with it. And I have, within the last couple of weeks, it's just gone, I think I'm done. I think I'm not buying any more rule books unless, if Jim says, hey, we're playing so-and-so, make sure you have a rule book, I will get it and I will read that because it's a thing that's going to happen because you're very dependable in those situations. But I am not. And everyone just wants to play Dungeons and Dragons these days. Actually, that's not true. We have 2 gaming cafes that have just opened up in my town.
Oh, nice.
And one of them has a weekly schedule and it lists, and most of them, I would say like 85% of them are D&D games. I played Troika for the very first time the other day.
Oh, cool.
And I was so thrilled because I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually pay a little bit of money, and it wasn't that much. And it was certainly worth it. I've got like 4 of these Troika books here that I've never cracked open. I read the rules just so I could have a basic understanding of it. And I went and played a game and I felt like, okay, I got my money's worth out of that. So I am potentially going to play some of these games that I've gotten in the past. But on the whole, most people just want to play D&D these days. And I get most people being younger people, the ones that I'm working with. But I definitely don't, I want to dip into my library. But you had mentioned Spectres. I've got this list of things that I want to investigate. But I probably am not going to buy that.
No, that's understandable.
Sound fantastic.
Well, yeah, and Troika actually is the game that I keep hearing about that I haven't looked into yet, and I need to sometime soon. But yeah, well, part of the reason I bring up inspectors is it is like it is. Sometimes I describe it as the lazy GM's dream because you can get the players to make up most of what's going on. But it's I run inspectors fairly often. It was like the first ever tabletop RPG I did on this channel, and it's kind of like the Ghostbusters with the serial number scraped off to a certain extent.
Fair enough.
In that it's a paranormal investigation.
Ghostbusters as the IP or Ghostbusters as the old who put the old Ghostbusters game out from the 80s? I feel like wasn't FASA. It was
yeah. That's one of those things I should know.
It was a fun system. I did play that in the 80s and I really enjoyed it. Anyway, go ahead. I'm interrupting.
Yeah, that definitely West End Games.
West End. It was West End.
Yeah.
Same one who did Star Wars, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
That first Star Wars. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. Yes. We've had that confirmed. I see in chat. But yeah. So the Game Inspectors is more of, well, it came out in the 2000s. Jared Sorensen of Memento Mori Games put it out, and it is kind of a take to a certain extent on startup culture, because it is done as kind of a thing where you are running your own inspectors franchise, where people will contact you to deal with things like ghosts and vampires and cryptids and demons and all manner of different supernatural things. And the thing is, though, that the way that it works, there are only a few types of rolls in it. And when you make a roll, generally, if you roll well, then you get to basically say what happens.
Fair enough.
And so the way that I run it, if you roll poorly, I also give you a chance to say what happens.
Right.
But it's the way that game was one of several games that sort of really altered how I do things to an extent.
Sure.
It was an early introduction to me for like, wait, just ask questions of ask the players of a thing that is going on, and you can fill it in, and that helps with various improv RPG stuff that I do. But one of the things I wanted to mention is one of the games that I ran that I streamed on this channel, I think. I've gotten to a point now that I have this process when I'm preparing to run inspectors, because I don't want my brain to get bored. Because I want to be engaged, and so in leading up to it, I will have a list of cities, and I'll usually give the players a choice ahead of time. Which city do you want this in from this list? And once they decide on one, I then grab a tourist map, and I use that to and maybe I do a little research on the side to figure out sort of, okay, where do I want it to be set? And there was a point where I left it a little bit open, and they said they wanted Myrtle Beach. I did not put Myrtle Beach on the list. I had a very vague list at the time, but I was like, okay, well, I got a full disclosure. I'm from Myrtle Beach. And so there may be a bit more detail here than usual.
First off, and all of you've got sand. You may not know, you haven't gone to the beach, but you've got it in places that you wouldn't normally expect sand.
There is a lot of
so much sand
everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's not. You don't even have to be inside of the beach, and there will be sand.
No, just sand
for miles and miles. There's quite a lot of it. So you very helpful if you enjoy sand.
Can we talk a little bit about systems that help with collaborative storytelling?
Well, yes, and that's my point of bringing up inspectors to an extent.
Yeah.
Is that they are, and that was actually, by the way, and I'll just put a button on this by saying that was how I found out that the area where the pavilion used to be was replaced by a zip line company. Um,
Well,
yeah, at that time. But yeah, definitely. Did you have another game in mind that?
I was just saying, Powered by the
storytelling?
Apocalypse, by its
Very
very
good one.
nature, is such an excellent, and it almost gives my players so much power over the narrative that I think if you have the wrong sort of group, it actually doesn't work in the game's benefit. So if I have very young players who are unsure of how they want to tell a story, and you say, well, that role didn't work, how did it not work? Sometimes the momentum just completely flattens, and part of that's up to me, as a game master, to recognize who wants to tell a story, who is going to tell too much of a story. But just sort of playing Powered by the Apocalypse games, and again, they have that open system. Bless them, because I'm working right now, and I haven't signed an NDA. I can't go into details, but I'm working in a system now that we're an IP that we're currently experimenting with within Powered by the Apocalypse, and I think it's going to work the best using that system. And then mainly because, one, only needing 2 6-sided die is great, even though I find that most players would rather have a full contingent of dice in their hands. But 2, there's not a lot of math. Like, there's never, like, you and I were THACO kids, right? Like, the less math, the better, as far as, like, math should never get in the way of your storytelling. That's my opinion. At least as far as the storytelling that the story we're trying to tell.
Yeah.
But just being able to go, you fail. How did you fail? You succeeded, but at a cost. What was the cost?
Yeah.
You succeeded fantastically. What does that look like? The fact that I'm never going to roll a die is beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I thought I would miss it at first, and I absolutely do not. Because there's so much onus on our players, especially once they've played it. But I will say that games like that, I don't have them roll all the time. That's another thing that I actually have changed as I've become more of a narrative-driven storyteller, is that I don't have them roll as much as I used to, because in D&D, like, part of the joy of it is watching them fail and or succeed on dice rolls. But it's such a black and white fail or succeed. There's no gray area. And I don't like that. And so I've been trying to figure out, is there a way to adopt a more Powered by the Apocalypse approach to dice rolling in D&D? And the system just isn't built for that yet. And I bet at some point in time that might change. But the problem, because they tout themselves as a D20 system by its very nature, it is very much a DC based, like, going towards a certain target number. It would probably be hard, but I really wouldn't be surprised, because the newest book, which is 5th edition, no, 6th edition, whatever they're calling it, the 2024 rules, is so much more like the indie games that you and I both love. It has definitely taken some beats from that. And I think the natural progression is either they're going to snap back and they're going to go crunchier. Hope that doesn't turn out to be the case. But because the popularity of actual play podcasts or YouTube shows or all of that are really showing less rolls, more narration, I think you're going to see something maybe like that in the future, which I would applaud for D&D, because I think that's the one thing it's missing, is telling a player that they didn't succeed. It feels like a loss to them, but bad rolls are a blessing to storytelling. The system doesn't support that, whereas Powered by the Apocalypse, it does. Failing forward adds to your narrative. I mean, failing forward, it's so good. Kids on Bikes does this as well. You fail forward, you get a point that you can activate to use your character's super abilities later on. So you get that wonderful cinematic effect of, like, when he finally succeeds, he's been storing up all these points, and he finally spends them and does something totally incredible, and everyone around the table is cheering. Like, I love that. It's like you can manifest a critical success on a D20 kind of a thing, but the game is designed to build something along those lines. But I tell a young player who's playing D&D that they failed, and they get weepy-eyed sometimes. And so
Yeah,
it's
I guess that can be
fascinating when you have the mechanics built into the system where it allows you to tell a story, win or lose. And I think that's beautiful.
I think so too. I will tell you that, yeah, PBTA games were one of those that did sort of imprint on me to an extent and changed a little bit the way that I was running. I have a lot of games that changed the way that I ran games. But,
sure, of course, yeah.
With PBTA games, I very much sort of was able to eventually, once I got it, embrace the idea that it's not so much pass or fail as it is good news, bad news.
Yeah, true.
That really helped out because the story can continue. The story The idea is the story should continue, and failure should hopefully be interesting if you can make it interesting. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be failure so long as it's like if someone like rolls, like 6 or less in a Powered by the Apocalypse game that I'm running, that doesn't necessarily to me mean that they have failed at what they're doing. More, it means that whatever they've just done has perhaps made things worse.
I want to jump in on that. I try to explain to my players in a D20 system, because that's what I mainly play, is that don't think of it as a failure. Think of it as a failure to do the thing you were trying to do. So if they're trying to find a secret door and they roll a 2, they don't find the secret door in the method that they do. I can still let them stumble upon the secret door in a way that makes it feel like earned, right? Like maybe they take a couple of hits or something along the line, but it's, you are trying to do a thing, and you either succeed at the thing you're trying to do or you fail at the thing you're trying to do, but that doesn't mean that the thing fails entirely. You just didn't do it the way you wanted to.
Yeah.
And something like Powered by the Apocalypse, it has informed that level of storytelling. And it keeps us from doing that thing where all they have to do is roll a 10 and they can find the secret door, and they keep on rolling 7s. Like eventually they'll find it in a Scooby-Doo style, like, yoinks, we fell backwards against this wall, and look what we found, man. That kind of a thing.
No, that's understandable. No, that's cool. That's cool. Especially when I do, like, with investigative games, if it's Powered by the Apocalypse, then it's something that I'll or even actually, to be perfectly honest, I've taken that to a lot of other games where it's just, I sort of make it a little more like reading tea leaves. You can kind of, like, outside of combat, there are a lot of games you can do that in, including like Savage Worlds and all that. So you're just sort of like where if there's a failure and they're looking up information, for example, then a lot of times I'm not going to have like something attacks them while they're looking up information necessarily. That can happen, but what it generally, to my mind, means is that, if they get a miss on the dice, is it's more like, you found this out, and this thing you found out is a horrifying revelation.
Right. Yeah.
So I just describe it in as bad terms as possible. Essentially, this thing that they succeeded at finding out what they wanted to find out, but unfortunately, it does mean it's the way that the information is kind of shaded. Unfortunately, it does that to them.
It's funny. I was going to look at something because something you said reminded me of the way they do it in Kids on Bikes. And I'm looking at now. There's a whole chapter on it's called collaborative creation.
Oh,
it actually says it in there. There are 2 different ways that you can actively engage in using actions in Kids on Bikes. And there's prepare. I'm going to get the wrong, because again, I've got 40 years worth of RPG terminology in my head. But there's prepared actions and instant actions. And you can, if you're doing a prepared action, the party can spend their points to help you because you're having that moment all together and you can think about it. And instant actions, only you can spend your own pool of points. And that's kind of an interesting way of handling those situations, because it does put, again, a story narrative on it. Now that I know that you've never played Kids on Bikes, I want to run a game of Kids on Bikes for you, because I think
Maybe.
you'll really find it interesting. So we'll find a couple of people in here.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. It's I have this weird thing about that I'm not great at playing kids. It's
you technically
just
can
a mental
be
block
kids,
that I have.
Teens or adults in this game, though I
okay.
don't think you should be. I think you should only be able to play kids and teens, because I think that's the putting yourself in that mindscape. The other thing too is, like, you can decide how stupid the kids are. Like, you can make them movie teens, or you can make them realistic teens. There's some discussion of how it goes. They're a lot more flexible. The kids themselves, they heal better, but kids actually have a ability where they can kind of bounce back from injury.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of fun.
I seem to remember there was something about with with Tales from the Loop, where they were just sort of making it. It's like that is a little less lethal necessarily for kids, or kids can bounce back more easily. Whereas when you get to Things from the Flood, then that's much harsher.
Another game that I have on my shelf over here, that I've never played. When we did our first season of the podcast, every season we choose a different type of genre, and so our first season was Kids on Bikes, movies that we would watch the movie, discuss the movie, and talk about how to gamify the movie.
Okay, and this is the Never Say Die podcast, right?
Yeah. Sorry, it's the Never Say Die podcast, which is kind of on a bit of a hiatus at this point in time, just because life happens, and it is what it is. And so we were just buying every game that we could find, so that, when we talk about a movie, the first half of it is a movie review podcast, and the second half of it is how we could gamify the movie, so that regardless of the system that you're playing, you could play a game inspired by. So, like when we do Lost Boys, like, how do we do a kind of horror comedy where obviously your villains are vastly superior in all ways, but you could still make it feel like it works. So while we were looking at horror games, you could do a Call of Cthulhu version of it, but I was like, how do you do a Lost Boys inspired game of Star Wars? Like that kind of a thing. So we were buying a bunch of RPGs, and Tales from no, not Tales from the Loop. What's it called?
Kids on Bikes, Things from the Flood.
No. But you had just mentioned it before the flood, but it's called something the Loop.
Tales from the Loop.
It is Tales from the Loop. Okay, Tales from the Loop. We bought Tales from the Loop. I've looked at it briefly, but like it's been shelved because it's just like, I have bought too many games in preparation for it. I was using the podcast as an excuse to indulge in consumerism. I was like, well, I've been wanting to buy this forever, but now I can actually use it to inform my podcast. And now I just have a huge library of games I'm never going to play. So
it's rough, and I understand. I can sympathize. I can definitely.
I know. I follow you on Kickstarter. Yeah. I've seen the number of games you supported.
The horrors. Of my Kickstarter numbers. How many freaking Kickstarter? A lot of them I just throw $1 at these days.
Right,
but
and that's the smart move, I think, a lot of the ways. So it could be like, I helped support all of these games. But did I really? No, I did not.
Well, I just wanted to keep tabs on it, and at least and see. Well, that's the thing is you and other folks follow me on Kickstarter, so it's like, here, look at that in case you want it, that sort of thing.
Right. We had a segment at one
raise
point
the antenna a bit
on the podcast. We were like, hey, these are new Kickstarters that we're following. And it was just like, at some point in time, we're actually making our audience lose money because we're telling them to buy these games in full knowledge that we're not going to end up playing them. The most recent one I got was, I thought, wouldn't it be funny if we played a Pokemon inspired game in Dungeons and Dragons? So I got a Pokemon inspired Dungeons and Dragons supplement, and I'm reading through it, and it's fabulous. They did a really, really good job with it, but I don't know if I'm ever going to play it, but it's still very fun to look on the back half of this book and see all their 151 different wildkins, is what they're calling them now. But anyway.
No, that's right. Well, I think that it'd be good to also just, as far as if we're mentioning games that are good with collaboration and help encourage collaboration, just sort of in the way that they're structured. So we mentioned Inspectors. You mentioned For the Queen, which is an excellent game, and was one of the inspirations for the game that I made 1 year hence. That is sort of a Green Knight version of that game.
That's right.
And,
yeah.
And
I also wrote one based on For the Queen.
Oh, did you?
I never published it, but I have written one. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about it, or do you want to keep it on the back burner for now?
Because eventually it will get made.
Okay.
It's just one of those things where I played it and went, oh my God, Alex Roberts is the most amazing creator of all time. Games in which you're just asking questions and the engine is entirely based around.
Yeah.
It's a great format, and brilliant stuff.
Well, and to that end, also with games that ask questions, we mentioned PBTA. One other thing I wanted to mention about a lot of those is the way that you build characters on the playbooks themselves. You have questions that you have to answer that are also many of which involve the other characters sometimes, the way they set it up. And that's a very good way to create prompts that you bounce off each other. I think that there is if you want to go back to the 90s, Amber Diceless has a whole section of like character questions you can ask. A lot of folks don't apply it in the way that I think is as useful, but some folks do. And I think that's where sort of the seed of that germinated for a lot of things. But I also wanted to mention a game that's really good. Might not necessarily look like it on the surface, but that I found was Lady Blackbird. Have you ever had a chance to play that?
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
I can't remember his name, but I was the goblin. And I think every time I played Lady Blackbird, I was the goblin mechanic.
Yes.
Whose name is not Squee, but in my brain it's Squee.
Yeah. I play that character as well from time to time when that would happen. But that format is very interesting in the way that it does rely. It's basically entirely about story beats,
right?
And hitting your keys, right, to advance things. But then also something that absolutely blew my mind the first time I played it was at a convention, and the GM did this thing where, again, this is part of the philosophy of asking questions of the players, which is something else they tell you to do in PBTA games. But with this, which is not a PBTA game, this is the first thing we sat down, and as a lot of folks know, that Lady Blackbird is a specific scenario. Everyone starts off in a cell. And the GM sat there and said to us, okay, now I'd like each of you to give me one detail about this cell. And he continued to do that kind of thing throughout, where it's like you get to a point and he asks you, okay, everyone tell me a thing about this. Or he'll say, someone give me some information about this thing, to fill in details as you go. Blew my freaking mind, and made it much easier for me to improv GM when I want to. But that's a really good one. And you said you have that's right. You played it a number of times.
I have played it twice.
Snargle, I think, is the name of the goblin.
With the same group.
Yeah.
That sounds right. Something along those lines. We decided to play, and we got all really excited about it. We played one session, and then a year went by, and they said, okay, I feel like we've all forgotten where we were, so let's just play it again, and then we played it. It was the same group, same characters, and it was just one of those games where sort of like I understand why our game master chose this one. I understand why they picked this disparate group of people to play this one, because each one of us, I think they could be trusted to give those kind of details in a way that it informed it, rather than felt like I was trying to go, well, there's a lump underneath one of the rugs that could potentially have been a hidden key, that kind of a thing. Like we're there to build. It's one of those games that rewards failed authors, the ones who really just want to tell a story rather than necessarily play a game. Sometimes I feel like I fall into that category, which is why I'm a forever GM. I want to read something to you. Again, this is not necessarily a pitch meeting for why you should play Kids on Bikes. But before you launch yourself into the game, so this is one of those things that really reminds me of Fiasco, right? So in Fiasco, we have a question. We have something that connects each player to the person next to them. Again, Fiasco, probably my favorite all-time RPG, and again, mainly because I had you facilitating the sessions at so many conventions for so many years. Before you can play your characters, so right, you've created your town, so you understand where all these characters are going to be. You've chosen a trope, your jock, your kid detective, your so and so. But then the thing that blows me away is the game master goes, okay, I want a relationship between your character and then that character. Do you want it to be positive? If so, you look at this list of 20 questions, or do you want it to be negative? If so, you go to this list of 20 questions. And then you roll a d20. It's like, I think we're going to have something antagonistic, so I'm going to go with something negative, right? So I'm going to roll a d20. I roll a 14. What is your plan to get revenge on this character, and what misunderstanding led you to make this plan? And all these really wonderful stories where at this point in time, you open the door with the other character and you collaborate on that relationship. And the character creations, there's positive ones, there's neutral ones, characters you don't know yet, there's questions like that. And I have seen session zeros go 3 hours late because the questions are so good that they created these stories that I basically said, do you want to continue going down this rabbit hole, creating these characters, or do you want to get playing? And everyone's like, honest to God, I just want to do this. It was, what it was like? Again, another collaborative. It was like playing Microscope, right?
Oh, but, yeah.
Yeah. So rather than doing the city, the world that you create, or Icarus or something like those along those lines without stacking the dice towers. But it became such an important thing to create this that when we started playing, we were all like, we have created this complicated relationship where I'm not sure this role-playing game about, the Crimson Ghost or whatever it is going to justify the character drama that we have created. And this is before we rolled a single die into actually role-play. It was just all storytelling. And it just leading up to it. And it was such a joy. It felt like anybody who was going to make a story should write a movie script should just be playing this. It's sort of like Fiasco, where you're like at the end of every Fiasco game, you have a Coen Brothers film, right? Last year I watched all the Coen Brothers movie in chronological order, and I was just kind of like, oh, I completely understand how Fiasco got made. Like Jason, you could tell Jason was watching these movies and went, okay.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you something. I have to tell you something. There was there was a time when my mission in life was to play as much Fiasco as possible. Sure. There was a point when I was part of an online group of writers. I was sort of it was like a Facebook group, I think. We would occasionally have these events where we would meet up, over whatever we were using. I think we were using Skype at the time. And I wanted to sort of introduce some of them to Fiasco as a writing tool. So I was facilitating it for a bunch of writers. So we never made it past the initial phase where you lay out the cards and you create the relationships in the situation because they kept talking about more detail, adding more and more details. And I was like, okay. I mean, I was trying to demonstrate it for use as a writing tool, but we never made it to the game. It was just a thing where we just sat there for like 2 or 3 hours, and these writers go, oh yes, and this person is cheating on this other person. And I was like, yeah, okay, yeah, no, I guess we're not going to actually do the game, but I hope you get the idea at least a little bit.
Sure,
what we're talking about.
I got invited to a Fiasco podcast that was going to get started, where every week we played another game of Fiasco, and we were going to go through the entire book, and I think they realized once we played a 4.5 hour long game, they're like, oh, I'm not editing this game, this podcast is over. We had a fun night, everybody, but it's over now. Because when we get the opportunity to tell these stories, because these games are designed to create those relationships, to create those opportunities for collaborative storytelling, unlike most other games. And I think a certain type of player really wants to take part in that kind of story.
Yeah.
So I think what you and I are sort of hinting at is you have to make sure, especially your session 0, your players want to be a part of this, right? Like, yes. I think there's a certain players who are like, I played in a D&D game where we used Quiet Year, and I said, look, the next 2 sessions is going to be playing the Quiet Year, so till we build this world. And after the first session, she goes, I'm out. I can already tell I'm not going to enjoy this. I just want to play Elsa from Frozen and zap people. That's it. I have no interest in building a world. And I'm like, that's fair. But it seems like everybody else does, and I do too. So like, it's like, we're not trying to exclude you. Would you, I asked the rest of the group, do you want to end this so we can include this person? Everyone else went, no, we really like this. We really like this. So yeah, I'm sorry. We'll just have to pick her up on the next time. And she's like, all right, cool. It was amiable, but like, that when you have a system that supports this kind of gameplay, it's such an absolute joy, because that's the sort of thing that I like. And I can absolutely get lost in the minutia of world building and character development, to the point where like, I don't want to do combat. Like, I don't care at this point in time. I just want to tell the story. And again, games like Microscope, where it's just like, and then this happened, and now we're going to talk about how that affects the history of this world for X number of whatevers. So yeah,
absolutely. Well, we're getting on here, so I just wanted to ask at this point, as we kind of start wrapping things up, were there any other games you wanted to bring up, or things you wanted to say about collaborative storytelling before we kind of dive off for the evening?
I feel like we've hit a good chunk of the ones that I think I would draw people's attention to. I'm not trying to get into there are super obscure games that, like, if you only can get access to them if in a humble bundle now, because their time on Kickstarter or GoFundMe or whatever it was had they're maybe on Twitch or something along those lines. And there are games, for instance, I feel like Wander Home is another wonderful example of a pastoral game that the mechanics are there specifically to just tell a story in a quiet, we're walking down a path. These are the things that have happened to us in our lives. That's certainly one that I would recommend. I haven't played it. I've read it and I've listened to people play it. And it's one of those things where I would love to play it with a group of friends who are just going on a hike through the woods. I'm looking back at my bookshelf. Oh my goodness. No, I shouldn't. That is just opening up a can of worms. No, I think that's probably it. I think it's probably for in the same way that your group of writers went on for too long because of that. I think if we were going to that, the number of games, if your listeners are really interested in games to support collaborative storytelling, if you're looking for stuff that's closer to your traditional sort of gaming mechanics that also support it, I think Powered by the Apocalypse, depending on which of the many games Like Evil Hat has so many great Powered by the Apocalypse things. Let's just Blades in the Dark, right? Like Blades in the Dark, because by the very nature of that book, it is using that system that does tell that story, and its downtime mechanic and its flashback mechanic are all really good for telling stories that work within it. That's another really excellent one. They just came out with Blade 68, which is less,
yes,
which is more of a 70s heist film,
yeah,
sort of a thing. I'm interested in that. I think the main drawback for a game like Blades in the Dark is the world that it's created. Duskfall is very well detailed, and I think people who have played in it understand that world and the importance of certain decisions. But I also feel like it hampers gameplay when you only can play in that world that exists within the pages of that book. I think it needs to have a more open world book, so something along the lines of Scum and Villainy, which is a Star Wars-esque version of Blades in the Dark, except you're crewing a ship like Firefly. Like something along those lines. You're still using the Powered by the Apocalypse system, but you're playing a game that has a way of actually mechanics for downtime, or like, what do we do with all this money? What if we just built ourselves a hideout? And rather than saying, like, we just paint the walls of this new color, or we hire, a guy named Steve to watch the door, there's actually mechanics that help build that storytelling.
Yeah.
So stuff like that is fabulous. But I mean, you could do worse than listen to this conversation and check out like one or two of these games. If you're going to have to check out one or two of these games, Fiasco's number one in my book. It doesn't work the same way as a traditional role-playing game, but you will be so satisfied with the results if what you're trying to get is collaborative storytelling. And then anything by Powered by the Apocalypse. I think those would be the two. And if you're not looking to spend that kind of money, just get For the Queen. It's $20. You can carry it in your pocket, and I guarantee you're going to get some really, truly amazing results from it.
Yeah. No, it's excellent recommendations. And I think I will say to your points, there is. I think it's okay to. There are a lot of games that are that are out there to tell a very specific kind of story in a very specific setting, and I think those are cool. But then a lot of games, that will Powered by the Apocalypse, especially, are moving towards an end. There is a point where a lot of playbooks, specifically, you in most PBTA games I played, there's a point where it's like your character can retire, and
right.
So you have to decide ahead of time what sort of story. If you want something that's going to be a long ongoing thing, you have to sort of keep that in mind too. But it is very much built with sort of the different kinds of story beats in mind, I think.
True.
Yeah, but it's but yeah, I highly recommend those. I do highly recommend Fiasco and any other games that Jason Morningstar put out. So,
yes,
Durance is great for if you have something with conflicting two conflicting hierarchies. And there's so many. There's so many newer ones have come out even since that I have on my shelf and I have yet to really get to. But
okay, well, I got one more.
Go ahead.
Because we're talking it. We're selling her. We're singing her praises so much. Starcrossed is a phenomenal collaborative storytelling game about unrequited love. It is a difficult one to recommend because there's a safety element to the game. So if you're not familiar with this one, it is played with 2 players and only 2 players. There is a Jenga tower between you, and you play 2 individuals who should not be in love with one another. So, for instance, I've went to a convention. I played one computer programmer and the AI that they had created.
Nice.
I have played a first contact scenario with human and an alien being. And as you try to avoid actions that would culminate in you, I don't know, having your first kiss or something along those lines, you play the game of Jenga the way it works, but that builds the tension so that when it finally collapses, you give in to your passions. And I have only played this game with other men, and I think it's part of that game. I think is really really beautiful. Is that it is there's a certain level of discomfort with it, but because you agree, there's like a certain level of safety right off the beginning. Like it basically
Yeah.
has all the safety rules that you and I champion constantly. But like we make these decisions to tell these stories, and the stories. I read my first romance novel this year, and went like, oh, I get this now. Like I completely get it now, and I wouldn't have read it if I hadn't played Starcrossed, where I understand like the tension between two individuals who just want to smooch can be just as palpable as galactic rebellion fighting a totalitarian empire, right? Like it's still really kind of beautiful, and you can as two individuals tell that collaborative story, and it's such a wonderful thing. So that's Starcrossed by Alex Roberts is again. Jason Morningstar produced it. They just came out with an expansion to it, which I bought without even looking to see what it did, and I've never opened it, so I have no idea what it actually is. But I knew that I wanted it before it became sold out and was out of print, because I'm that kind of nerd. But it is a really excellent game, but it isn't one that I necessarily would recommend to everybody. I think you have to make a conscious choice to tell that sort of story.
Yeah, Starcrossed is great. I do recommend folks look at it and sort of decide if it's a game for you. Right. Again, by Alex Roberts, who also did the For the Queen, the game that we've been talking about as well. And I did get to play Starcrossed on this channel. We did kind of a one shot of it following a superhero campaign that we were in, and that I was in with another character, and my friend Kat and I played the two characters, and we were very not familiar with the game, especially not how to do it online. So we had our friend David, who was very familiar with it, sort of chaperoning, to explain.
Who was working the tower? Who was working the tower, or were the two of you in the same room?
It's it's a thing where you roll a. We were in separate. Everyone was in separate rooms. It's a thing where, there is a die roll, and it depends on just however many times it comes up the same number.
Fair enough.
So mathematically, it works out to a thing where you get closer and closer to the tower falling over, basically. And you can it's a thing you can look it up and find sort of the way how to play Starcrossed online, and there should be out there. It should still be out there. But I thank you very much for coming and chatting with me about all of this. This has been a lot of fun.
Man. I mean, look, if it comes time to talking about role-playing games, you're one of my favorite people to do this with. We've been doing it for over 30 years. And I don't get a chance to talk about the theory behind role-playing games as much as I'd like. And it's just as exciting to me sometimes to talk about hypotheticals or to pitch ideas as it is to actually play. Sometimes more so because, as a forever GM, and I know you know this feeling as well, this is the mantle that we have fully accepted. And sometimes it is to the players and the game's detriment to explain why we've made certain choices to our players. And I want to be able to do that kind of thing. So having a way to actually discuss what it is, why we as game masters make these decisions, why we choose these games specifically, what we get out of it, is really a joy. So, anytime you want to have a chat and about it. And now I'm very much determined to play a game of Kids on Bikes with you, just so you can, again, it is a system that is very near and dear to my heart. Even though I have designed my own games, and I think I've put together something like 20 different role-playing game books that have been published. And this time, this is the one that I feel like I actually was the most successful. Was the game that actually, rather than help someone build their own thing, I actually got to put some content that I loved, that a game I already liked, and made it better, and they listened to me. And so second edition Kids on Bikes is just absolutely one of the pride of my collection at this point in time. And I'm not saying that just because I was a part of it. I'm saying it because I genuinely think it is everything that I like about role-playing games.
Awesome. That's great. No, that is wonderful. Was there anything that you had that you wanted to plug before we dive off? Or just let folks know.
We have been on a little bit of a gap for the last 6 months or so with Never Say Die, but if you like movies and you like role-playing games and you think it would be interesting, this is the most niche podcast I've ever been a part of. But if you think listening to two people talk about movies and then talking about how you could play a role-playing game regardless of the system, then Never Say Die with Drew Meyer and Rafe Telsch. Give it a listen. We have a Facebook group that no one takes part in anymore because we have been terrible hosts. I mean, maybe the podcast is gone. I don't know. It's just life has just kind of made other plans. But I'm so proud of the 100 or so episodes or whatever it is that we've made. I really hope we get the chance to finish it. We're in heist season now. And if we get a season 3, it will be post-apocalyptic movies. And I think there's a lot of really interesting storytelling ideas that haven't been explored in that genre. Heist, let me tell you, is a fabulous genre because I still haven't played a good heist game. Now, Kids on Bikes, I have been writing the heist / Spy Kids / International Man of Mystery / Men in Black version of Kids on Bikes. I've been working for the last couple of years, but it's very much incomplete because it's a tough nut to crack. So, if people have ideas, send them my way because, give me a listen, see what you think.
Excellent. All right, folks. Well, what do I have going on? Well, let's see. Here on this channel, let's see. Today is Friday. So right now on Sunday nights, most Sunday nights, we are having our second season of Lords of Gossamer and Shadow that we've been playing, run by my friend Brian, who was in chat just a little bit ago. And it's been a ridiculous amount of fun. It's sort of a spiritual successor to the Amber Diceless RPG, as we're playing reality hopping beings. And then on Tuesdays, we are having a short campaign of Draw Steel, to go to the other end of the spectrum of RPGs to an extent.
Right.
Which is very tactical. And we've been having fun with that. That's being run by Levi. Also on Thursday nights, I am over on High Shelf Collective, where I am playing in an OSR style game called His Majesty the Worm. It actually uses tarot cards, so mechanically it's not quite, but there's a lot of the philosophy and inventory management and such is there, and we are absolutely ridiculous in that game. So it's been a lot of fun. So feel free to come and check those out. Aside from that, I occasionally do video games here when I can. And that's most of it. But in the meantime, folks, please remember that you are unique, and that is wonderful, because variety is very important, especially right now. So you matter. So please take care of yourselves, and you can absolutely give yourselves grace when you need to. Take care, and we will see you all of a sudden. Farewell.